Well, as I always say, it's a fantastic one, and that's classic, and it really is. This is somebody, yeah, I've said this before. I've wanted to get him on the show for a while, but I really have. And I got to tell you, this gentleman he just came out with a book that is just fantastic. I read the entire book, loved it. He played Otter in Animal House. He was the vice president on the West Wing. He was the voice of Johnny in Johnny Quest. And plus, he was on Leave It to Beaver. I mean, my gosh, some of the
Oh,
stuff I learned was amazing. But anyway, his book is named Damn Glad to Meet You, My 7 Decades in the Hollywood Trenches. And I want to welcome Tim Matheson. Welcome, Tim.
John, thank you very much. Thank you for the nice things you said. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I'll tell you, I want everyone out there to know I literally, I was so excited to be, able to read the book early because I really enjoyed it. I mean, you had some, I didn't know, I'll be honest with you, Tim, I didn't know, I'd say half of the stuff from your early career. I thought that was amazing. So,
Oh,
that was pretty cool. That was really cool.
good.
So, anyway, wanted to let you, check in first. Look, everyone's going to come out and they're going to be like, oh, I want to hear about Animal House. I want to hear about Animal House. I mean, it's been going on forever. So I want to hit that first and then go into some of this other stuff. But one thing that I enjoyed was you mentioned in there about I believe it's Verna Bloom that
Yeah.
a couple of things. One, that there really was an attraction, possibly only coming one-sided, but also that this famous scene where you're in the bedroom with her and things are happening, a lot of that just happened, which I was blown away by. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, oftentimes when we're on location, actors, get carried away and get involved with other actors for the duration, and um, I was at a point in my career, it's my first comedy. I was very nervous about doing it, and I didn't have time to go out and drink or play around or fool around. And so I appreciated the fact that Verna was a lovely woman and that, she was somewhat attracted to me. And the director mentioned to me that, she wants to rehearse the scene with you. And I said, there's no scene, there is no scene. I pick her up and put her in bed. I mean, that's all we need. We can rehearse that on the set. And so I got the idea what he was hinting at, but so there was that. But the scene where I brought her to my Otter's room, which was sort of like made up like Hugh Hefner's pad
Exactly.
with a bar, and it was great. And all of that was shot when we were doing the parade sequence out in Cottage Grove, which took a week, which was of the 5 weeks we shot, that was the longest segment of the movie. And
Yeah.
whenever it was raining outside, because we were in Oregon in December and November, whenever it would start drizzling or raining, we'd run inside and shoot another scene that was inside, and they built those sets there, and my set was one of those. So we ran and shot that sequence of me seducing her in my room.
Is that in an
And
actual house or is that like a set on at some studio that they set up there?
it was it was a set which we put into like a warehouse or
Okay.
something. We built all those sets, like the little boy in his bed and the playmate falls through the window and crashes. And there was, it seems like, I think uh, when Dean Wormer's bedroom was also one of those sets. So there were several of those, I think, built there, and we shot them during
Interesting.
that time. But a lot of things happened during that, that take, um, that were just accidents. And because when I worked with Lucille Ball, she always said, always rehearse with your props. She made it a specific point that if you're going to do comedy, you have to know exactly how it's going to work.
Yeah.
It's not one of those let's get lucky things. And she was the master of physical comedy, going back to vaudeville days. So,
Well, even that scene where she does the chocolates, it
oh
looks like
my
it's
God.
it was all perfectly rehearsed and laid out, and she made it
Yeah.
look so natural.
And that she had the prop guys doing, this on cue and that on cue.
Wow.
And so I kind of, I had rehearsed in my mind. I knew what I was doing. I knew what I wanted to do, and I was suave and I was playing. But so I took her coat and I put it on a hanger and I went to hang it up and it just missed and fell.
I
And
mean, it's hysterical.
and it's like I just went, oh well, and I've heard, yeah, just stay cool, and it's like I'm not gonna. I mean, the other thing to do is to go, oh, cut, I got to do it again. But
Yeah.
I said, I go, that's cool. And then I loosened my tie. I thought, well, make it a suave thing. I'm in a toga, and then I loosened my tie, and then I pick up a glass, and those are phony ice cubes. You
Oh,
don't use
they
real
are phony. Oh, I didn't know
on a
that.
set. Yeah, I think they're rubbery kind of things, because you don't want them to melt during. If you're there shooting for 2 hours, it's going to be a bucket of water instead of a bucket of ice cubes. So I just tossed one into the glass and it kind of popped back out, and I went, oh well. And then I did it again, and I think another one popped out,
Oh, it's so funny, Tim.
and I sort of in my mind could hear Lucy going, just go with it. Do it. Just stay with it. Use it all. And it's one of the treats of having worked with somebody like Lucille Ball that there were no mistakes in a scene. You went through it. You used it all. And that was a big lesson for me.
And that was on Yours, Mine, and Ours. Is that right?
Yes. When I worked with Lucille Ball, I was
Yeah.
17, I think, at the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's just say, how lucky can a 17-year-old be? Come on, to get cast with Lucille Ball. Not only that, it sounded like she kind of took you under her wing a bit as well.
She was very gracious to me and very supportive to me. She came down. I tested maybe 2 or 3 times for that part, and she came down and was very nice and supportive of me during my test, and said,
Mhm.
you're a good actor. I mean, she was very complimentary and helped my nerves, by saying you're doing great. You're doing great, and we can't forget, at the time she also ran a studio. She was the first female executive in Hollywood. She ran
Right.
Desilu, which produced The Untouchables, Mission Impossible, Star Trek, and I mean, just the numerous shows. And she was making her move to get back into features from television. She was the biggest star in TV, but she would also, on the set, she was tough. She demanded the best. I don't care if you're 6 or 60, you will know your lines. You will do it on cue. You will not goof off. There's no chit chat. It's just, this is where we work. This is where the work gets done. And she was a taskmaster when it came to that, I mean,
Wow.
so because she was a perfectionist, and it was physical comedy, and it relied everybody. It's a team and everybody relies on everyone else. And so you're supposed to be here at this point. You had better be there at that point.
Mhm.
So
Wow,
that's my
fantastic.
wife on her way to work.
Sorry.
That's what I love about doing these, though. Seriously, I tell this in every interview, but life happens. Things are
Yeah,
happening around you. That's the
right.
beauty of it. So what the
Use it,
hell?
just use it, work with it.
Exactly. I say, have a wonderful day. Yeah, let's see your wife.
Oh,
This is
hi.
Elizabeth, my lovely wife.
Nice to meet you.
This is
Wonderful,
Catherine.
wonderful to meet you too. I have to say, you are in the book, and he obviously mentions the wonderful way that you guys met and everything. So it's kind of nice to meet you, I have to say.
Thank you.
Have a great interview. Enjoy the rest of the chat.
Thank you, baby.
Nice
Bye.
to meet you.
Nice to
Uh,
meet you.
Great. So yeah, by the way, Tim, I just want to say again, your honesty in the book is so refreshing. I mean this sincerely. I like the fact that it isn't all about just how everything's perfect, whatever. You talk about the struggles, you talk about, what you were like younger as like a young guy, and hey, you've got your nuances too, but it was really nice. It was really refreshing. I just
Okay.
wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you. I just didn't want to gloss over anything, and that it may not, they may not have been that hard. The things, I mean, I know people go through a lot harder things than I went through,
Sure, sure.
but that was very real for me, and very, and I just wanted to, be open to that and not make it some sort of, fairy tale, about my life. And that's one of the reasons why here's the book. Well,
Yeah,
I had
definitely
this
show it. Yeah.
cover, Rick Mayerowitz, who did the cover for the National Lampoon poster, and
Yeah.
and he was one of the great Lampoon artists. He did this for me, and because I just wanted to set the tone that it's fun, it's lively, it's crazy, it's a little bit rude and a little lewd, and what the
Mhm.
heck, I'm going to tell a tale, so and fill everybody in on the real stories.
Yeah, I loved it. So
Good.
another one on the Animal House front. I was curious about this on my own. I've done a lot of reading on Animal House too, and that scene where Belushi's coming down the stairs, and I believe it's Stephen Bishop that's playing the guitar. Now he grabs it and he hits it. I read an account that states that he did that in the moment, and Bishop wasn't ready for that intensity. And actually, it's real what you see from him. But then in the book, I also read that you said that this is all Landis. What is it?
Well, it was a real guitar, and John wanted it to, he moved it to that place, and I think he's sitting with Judy Belushi there too.
Oh
John
gosh,
John,
that's right. I think you're right.
right? And Stephen had written the Animal House song, and Stephen had gone to high school with John Landis, and so there was, there were a lot of closed circles closing there, and
Yeah.
so that what John had, there was another whole sequence about picking up a hitchhiker named Bob Zimmerman going, "Hey, I'm going to New York to visit Woody Guthrie," and it's Bob Dylan. And so he starts to sing one of his songs, and we throw him out of the car because we don't like his music. But that was a half a day's worth of work to do that. So John said, "No, let's just have Bluto do it and do it on the stairway and see if we do that, we probably won't need the other one." And so he's saving half a day of shooting because we didn't have any time. And John, that's what was happening because that was a real guitar. It was hard to break. So he kept smashing, smashing and smashing it. It wasn't a breakaway that was just going to blow up. No, that was for real. And I remember watching that and going, "Holy socks! This is messy." But I think that was the great thing about Landis and about a lot of that movie. It was messy. We didn't get things perfect and rehearse things to death. We would just go and try stuff. And then another thing John Landis would do that I don't think people were aware of, especially during any time we were in the toga scene or the pledge scene where they're all coming in, he would just throw things through just across the room. He would just take paper cups and throw them across the room, or break away bottles and throw. So things were just sailing through the air. It was just to keep it lively and and keep us like reacting to things.
Wow. Wow. That's fantastic. I got to tell you too, that moment on the stairs when Belushi hands him back, like it's like just the little neck of the guitar, and he's like, "Sorry." I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, John Landis always said the audience has to like you to the deltas. I mean,
Yeah.
you can be rough and mean like that, but sorry forgives everything. If you, I mean, it's sort of like Ralph Cramden from The Honeymooners when Jackie Gleason played it. He would threaten his wife, "To the moon, Alice." But he loved her and he had a big heart and he would never hurt her. It was just bluster.
Yeah.
So there was a bit of that in Bluto, and he and Landis knew that, and John Belushi knew that too, and played it so well.
That's great. The other part that I enjoyed in the book was that you mentioned that you and Bruce McGill, who played, D-Day, um, would pick John up from on Sundays when he would make that flight back from SNL. Because for anybody out there, he was doing SNL at the same time, so he was coming. What was it? Thursdays he flew back, or Wednesday night? I can't remember.
Sometimes he'd shoot half a day Wednesday. I think then they'd drive him to the Eugene airport, and then he'd fly to Portland and catch the plane to New York and probably the red eye, and then get in Thursday morning and work all day, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night and do it live, and then pour him back on a plane on Sunday. And,
Wow.
and Bruce and I would go get him and take him back to Judy so he could get some rest and.
What was he, look, you get, and I love in the book you address this, that everybody, even to this day, says, "Hey, what was John Belushi like?" Which, by the way, I have to tell you, I literally had to set I was reading it online, but I had to set it down. I was laughing so hard when you were talking about your father. You're at the back of the boat with the ashes,
Oh my
and the
God.
captain says, hey, what was it like to work with Belushi? I mean, I'm sorry. That was hysterical.
There are those moments in life when it all just comes together, you know, and it's like the sublime and the ridiculous, you know. And I was, my father had passed, and he'd been cremated, and I was taking his ashes out to sea, and we went, I don't know, a mile or two out, and the captain of the boat was a young guy, and he said, "Listen, I'll go up front and leave you." And I was with my girlfriend, and I said, "I'll leave you guys alone back here to free, you know, and so you can have a private moment." I said,
Yeah,
"Great."
yeah.
So I leaned down to the back in the back of the boat, and I'm just about to pour his ashes, his last earthly remains, into the water that, you know, that feeds us all.
Yeah.
And the guy wanders back around and goes, "Hey, I aren't you the guy from Animal House? What was it like to work with John Belushi?" And I said, "Could you just give me a minute?" And he goes, oh yeah, sorry. And he goes away, and I just said, "Oh, Dad." But it really made that moment so special for me and my father, because I could just hear him laughing, you know, and just like, oh my God, that's the life of an actor, isn't it?
Oh my gosh, seriously, that one just killed me. I couldn't take it. So my question is, you and Bruce pick him up at the airport. And people always say, "Hey, what was Belushi like?" But I guess my question to you is what was Belushi like? Obviously, he's coming back from New York. You're picking him up at the airport. What was he like in that kind of time? Because I can't see him landing. He's getting in the car with you guys and he's on. What was he like? What was that whole personality like?
Well, I think at those points he was pretty tired. I think he'd probably been up. There was always an after party, you know, and
Oh, sure.
the show was live at 11:30 in New York, and so they didn't finish until 1 a.m. and then they'd go and party probably until 4
Mhm.
or 5 a.m. in the morning, back when drugs weren't bad for you, you know, and that whole thing. And then he'd probably sleep on the flight. And when he got off, he was kind of just quiet John, you know, and you know, we would talk about the show because we'd obviously stay up and watch the show. I mean, everybody, you would never miss the show.
No, no, I agree.
And whether you knew John or not, it was a sort of an iconic thing. It was something you always did on Saturday night. And he would talk about, I remember, I won't mention a name, but he talked about one female music guest on the show. He said, "I hated her. God, because he was getting into the blues, you know, and he was,
Yeah.
and this was, she was singing pop music of some sort or other, and it wasn't too cool. He didn't think it was very cool, um, which just made us cracked up because, you know, she's on Saturday Night Live. She must be great. Everybody must love
Right.
her. And but you know, we just chat a little bit about that and just let him relax. You know, we just wanted to get him back to Judy. We'd go in and maybe have a drink or something with them, and then leave them alone and let them have their peace, because John and Bruce always usually work together, D-Day and Bluto, and so they were up first thing on Monday morning, and you know, so they had to get their rest, and so we get him once he's with Judy, he was fine, you know, and
Mhm.
it was a no drugs set, it was a no drugs community, and he was very, very he adhered to that strongly while we were there, you know, and it was
Mhm.
one of those things that was really important because we had no time to make that movie. I mean, it was just done in a flash.
Am I right? Did you say 5 weeks?
5 6 day weeks with 1 week rehearsal, which they called rehearsal, but it was only the Deltas came up to Eugene, and we spent a week together. And really, it was John Landis wanting us to get to know each other and to bond.
Mhm.
And you know, we would do these. We went out and saw the Deathmobile being built, and we'd see the sets, and we all went together collectively and had our hair cut, because I had like shoulder length hair, and you know, and
Wow.
then together in the barbershop. There's one barber, this Chicago guy in Eugene. I don't know how he ended up there.
I was just going to say, kind of ironic he's a Chicago guy considering Belushi's from Chicago. You know,
Right. And
weird.
so and then we'd vote on who gets what haircut. And this, so when it came to McGill for D-Day, Bruce had a big handlebar mustache that he'd grown, and John Landis wanted him to get a Lee Marvin buzz cut, I think from like the Dirty Dozen or something. And Bruce said, John, I want to try something first. You can always cut everything off, but let me just try something. And what he wanted was a flat top with ducktails. And as he described it to the Chicago barber, the guy he goes, oh yeah, Chicago boxcar. And he goes, okay. And so, yeah, and he said, I used to do 10 of these a day. So bam, he does that. And Landis looks at it and goes, perfect. That's perfect. Now, Belushi didn't want to get his hair cut because he was on Saturday Night Live. He said, no, I got to keep my hair like it is for the show. So we all ran with Bruce McGill, hidden by a cape, a barber's cape, over to the bar, or the cafe and bar across the street where John was. And Landis goes, John, you're not going to believe what Bruce McGill looks like. You're going to really want to get your haircut after you see this. And he goes,
oh my gosh.
Okay, let me see it. Drops the cape, and they both look at each other. D-Day and Bluto look at each other, and he goes, Chicago boxcar. And he goes, okay, I'll get a haircut. And he did. I mean, but it was just, that was the bonding experience of that week together that we had, that literally by the time the next week, I think on the next Saturday, the Omegas started coming into town. They were flying in, so the bad guys. And hey, we're all actors. These guys they haven't spent a week with us. And by now we're in character, and we know we're the good guys and they're the bad guys. So Mark Metcalf comes in, who plays Niedermeyer, and he comes in the cafe of the motel we're staying at, and he said, "Hey guys!" and he starts walking towards us, and everybody goes, "Boo, Niedermeyer!" and we start throwing food at him, and what the heck? I mean, he thought, "Wow, I know, I thought we were all actor pals. I guess not."
Oh, that is funny. I love that it was instilled like that, because it plays so well. That's the whole film is so natural, I mean, it just does. Now another thing that I thought was, there were so many great ones, but you were the Thanksgiving dinner that you guys would go over to Belushi's. That was cool. I mean, it sounded like there was this huge bonding that took place right there.
Absolutely. And that was largely due, I think, to Judy, who prepared the meal, and she wanted John away from all the activity at the motel and to take care of him. But Judy was like our den mother. I mean, it started on the plane from New York. I wasn't on that flight, but John and Judy and Bruce McGill and I think 4 or 5 Tommy Haltz, Kevin Bacon, and Niedermeyer, and they were all on the same plane, and the plane got about 10 minutes into the flight, and some birds hit the jet, got sucked into the jet. And so, wow, and they go, "We got to go back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry, we have to return to the airport. But we've, I think an engine's gone out, and we have to," everybody was like, "Holy crap,"
Wow.
And so they turned around and went back. And it was Judy who said, "Guys, come here." She got them all together. She herded them over to a flight attendant and got on another flight and booked everybody on another flight to get them out to Eugene, so that they weren't late for our first day of rehearsal.
Wow.
So she really was sort of the den mother of it all. She made costumes. She was so smart and so lovely.
For Animal House, she made costumes?
She helped Deborah Nadoolman, who was our costume designer, John Landis's then girlfriend and his wife now. And she made togas, and she helped paint the sets, and she was great. I mean, she just got totally involved in everything. And we, Thanksgiving's on a Thursday. So the question for us was, are we going to take Thursday off, and then then not work on Saturday, because that's the day we would get for Thursday, or do we want to work on Thursday and keep going through the week, and then take Saturday off, and then you can have Saturday as your Thanksgiving? And we voted for that. So we went over to Judy and John's house, I believe on Saturday, and she cooked us this great Thanksgiving dinner, and it was a delight. And that was really, I think, one of the only times we were all together in one place at one time. Omegas and the Deltas and the directors and producers and all that
Oh,
together.
everyone was there. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you. By the way, I want to acknowledge too. I mean, Judy just passed not that long ago. In fact, ironically, I had interviewed Martha Smith, which I haven't released that one yet, but it was shortly before that, and it really took her. I mean, that was a really hard one, and I just see the amount of respect that everyone had out there, for her. So
Yes. Yes,
yeah.
she was a dear woman, and she worked at the National Lampoon. She was there at the Lampoon. She was a good writer. She helped with when they were doing their off-Broadway show, the National Lampoon show that Ivan Reitman produced. That she was a part of that. She was there behind the scenes, sort of putting things and holding things together, not just for John, but for the magazine and everything else.
Wow, that's really great to hear about her, actually. The other one is you and Bruce McGill, who I love that you guys literally are lifelong friends, basically. But I was blown away that in the motel, he actually did the William Tell Overture thing, where he with his Adam's apple or whatever. And then I guess what I'm wondering is, obviously it's in the film. How did that go from there to the film?
It was that thing Landis said when we were doing the toga party. No, it wasn't the toga party. It was when Damn Glad to Meet You. And it was just when everybody's being introduced. He said, "Do you do anything? Can you do anything?" Jamie Widow says, "I can juggle," and so he juggles some tennis rackets, And Bruce said, "Oh yeah, I can do this," and he played the William Tell Overture on his, on his throat with his fingers. I mean, who can do that,
I know.
So Landis stuck all that stuff in, and some made the cut, some didn't make the cut. I don't think I did anything particularly amusing, but it was one of those things that was just John Landis. What can you do that's silly, funny that we could maybe use?
Oh, just fantastic. The other one was you said. I believe you said this. I'm trying to remember the whole book, but you said you came up with the line road trip. Is that right?
No, what I meant was it was my line. It was Otter's line, but I'd suggested that since Peter and I, Boone and Otter were just such bosom buddies. They were, I mean, the movie starts with us together.
Right.
We're pals. I mean, we're joined at the waist. I mean, so I said, why don't we both think of it at the same time? Why don't we share that line? In other words, so I know what we got to do. And I just looked at him and he looked at me and go, road trip. So I think it's funnier if we both do it rather than if just Otter does it.
Yeah.
And I said, and Landis says, all right, try it, And it's one of those things that I just wanted, and I think it was sort of the whole improv kind of, because Peter and I got that job because of Peter Reigert, because he could improvise and I had just learned how to improvise. And so in my audition, we hit it off and we started doing silly things together and just bouncing off each other. So we have this bond, and I just thought, let's do whatever's best for the movie, let's do that. I don't want one more line or one less line, I don't care. And it was funnier that way, I think. And that's what that was about.
It was great. And by the way, you fought for the audition. Am I right on that?
Yeah, they wouldn't see me. I met the casting director, Michael Chinich. My hair was down to here. I was playing in cowboys and hippies and
Yeah. I saw a lot of the old photos. I was like, wow,
yeah.
you did have the cowboy look. I give you credit.
Thank you. And then Chinich brought me back to meet Landis, and I wore like a silly T-shirt, which I think it said "Bad Taste Bar and Ego Grill." It was from Aspen. It was I thought that's hip, and they'll get it's lampoonish. Maybe they'll get it. And after that meeting, my agent said, no, they don't think you're right. They don't want to see you they don't want you to audition. you're not preppy. You're a cowboy or a surfer or something, but you're not preppy.
Wow.
And I was heartbroken. I just thought I'm stuck playing these stupid boy next door parts. And it's just, oh gosh. I mean, it was horrible. And I started racking my brain and I called my agent and I said, I had done a picture at Universal the year before called Almost Summer. And I knew some of the executives and I said, can't just please let me go in and audition, because if I go down in flames, I don't mind crashing and burning, but I just got to get a shot at this, because I just knew it was the most original, funny, inventive script I'd ever seen and different. And so they said, okay, finally, all right. They'd already had it. I mean, they hadn't locked a guy, but they had a character, an actor they wanted for the part,
Oh, I
a
didn't know that.
New
Okay.
York actor. And so I came in and Peter and I started doing the scene, and then I improvised something. He bounced off of that, and I bounced off of him, and and we played the scene just with a little bit of augmentation that we, threw in, and they were just in stitches. We had Landis and Doug Kenny and Ivan, and I think Maddie Simmons was there, and the casting director, and maybe even Sean Daniels. Their sides were splitting, and okay, now do this other scene. So and then they had me come back, I think a few days later, and it happened the same thing again. And then Landis, said, go outside, stand in the hall, wait in the hall. And he talked to, and I could hear him laughing and talking and laughing in the room with all the producers.
Wow.
And then he came out to me and he says, you're Otter. You got the part. We're going to hire you. We're going to use you. You're going to be in this movie. And no director had ever done anything like that to me before.
Wow.
Hollywood was always very formal. Well, thank you. We'll be in touch. We'll call call your agent. You go home like, oh, great. I should shoot myself now. You know what I mean?
Right. By the way, they're still like that. But anyway, go on.
That's right. Yeah. Exactly. So, of course, I went and called my agent. I said, don't tell a soul, but I think I'm getting this part, So.
Wow. What an exciting moment. That's just cool. It blows me away because, I'm saying as a fan, as someone out there, I don't see anybody else in that role. I mean, there's certain roles. It's like, that's our guy. You're it,
Yeah. I think, unfortunately, they saw that in the room with me and Peter.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted that. They wanted, guys that could play the humor, but were likable. I mean, when the script was originally written, the Lampoon, they were very edgy, dark,
Oh yeah,
very
loved
dark and dirty. They were wonderful and sexist, racist. They flirted with the edge of everything.
Yep.
And when the script was originally written, it started out as Charlie Manson in high school, and then Universal said, no, we're not making this. And then Ivan came in and said, okay, let's do it at college. And he got his friend, Harold Ramis, together with Doug Kenny, the founder of the Lampoon, and Chris Miller, who'd gone to Dartmouth and had all the fraternity experience. And he said, you guys get together, place it in college. Now get the script done. And everybody they did, and they wrote it. But when Landis came on, he said, all these guys are jerks. All of them are bad guys. We got to have the good guys be the deltas. And then Landis left. That's the first time he ever met the writers. And they all were going, he's a jerk. Well, yeah, he's, And then Ivan looked at him and said, he's right.
Wow.
He's right. We got to do it. And they did, and he said, the audience has to like you. Like when we got the date at the Emily Dickinson School for Women.
Oh, come on.
With Fawn Leibowitz, she was killed in a killing explosion. And we took them to this, the Dexter Lake Club, and we left them. We left them there in a bar where there are these great girls left surrounded by, some black gangsters, I mean, who knew? But they added a scene of them walking home. Okay, unmolested. They were all, and I kind of liked him. And ew, they made a joke out of it, but it showed that they did get home okay, and that these aren't the bad guys. They didn't just leave them in that club, and everything worked out okay.
Oh, wow. That's cool about the background. Well, I'll tell you what, I could talk to you about Animal House for about 7 hours, but but you have so much to this book. So I do want to talk a little bit about your early days, because like I said, I really got introduced to you probably just slightly prior to Animal House, not when you were younger, and I was really blown away by all that. I mean, I don't think most people realize what an acting background you had before Animal House came around. So could you tell me a little bit about, I know that you grew up in LA and you said that you went to your aunt and uncles and you came back, but what was it like at that time growing up in LA, and what really gave you I guess the oomph to say, I want to be an actor and push through?
I think when I was at my aunt and uncle's house in Santa Barbara, which was a year sort of respite from the divorce my parents were going through.
Was it Santa Barbara or San Bernardino?
I'm sorry, San Bernardino.
Yeah, okay.
Santa Barbara came later.
Yeah.
And I was in a class and they had like a live TV show that they did, a mock TV show every morning or every once a week, I guess, like the Today Show, and so they had their host and hostess, and then they would, have guests come on, and the weather guy or gal, and so I jumped into that, and I found I started getting laughs, and I the prettiest girl in the class thought I was funny, and I was like, wow, okay, it was
Yeah.
Linda Butterfield. I mean, if Linda Butterfield likes you, I mean, that's something. So and when I left, I remember when I left San Bernardino to come back to my mother in Burbank, because she'd sort of righted her ship and wanted us to come back with and live in Burbank with her. I just said, I want to be an actor. And I just knew that's what I wanted to do. I mean, because of the skits we'd done and the sketches we had done. And I used to then, and what that meant to me was I'd go sneak onto the back lots at Disney and Warner Brothers and sneak around the sets and find an old script, and just the magic of it, and it just seemed like being in Oz.
Well, I mean, you were in Oz, because I got to tell you, I was sitting there reading it and I was thinking, I would have given my right arm to be jumping a fence, and you're on the back lot of these studios. I mean, what a magic time.
Yeah, back when you could do that before the guards,
Yeah.
Now they have barbed wire and everything. So
That's crazy. So what was it like for you? You're I mean, really, I got to give you credit. I mean, like, I have an acting background. I've been through it. I didn't have quite the success you had, but very happy with the journey and all of that. But I'm thinking in that same space, you're watching like Leave It to Beaver, you're watching these shows, and then suddenly you're on these shows. What the heck was that like for you as a kid to go from watching that tube to suddenly you're in it?
Well, it was it was pretty special. I mean, first off, I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I had no training or technique. I'd never taken a class or anything. So I just sort of tried to act as naturally as I would in any given situation, which was okay in the smaller parts. But then as I got larger parts that required more emotional commitment or grading, then it got tougher for me. And sometimes I'd find the way to do it. I'd find the way for the emotion to come out, or sometimes I didn't, but I didn't, it was like magic. I didn't know how it worked. And auditions were always very hard for me because I was so shy. And you'd be sitting in a room with 25 kids and their mothers. And my mother didn't usually come in with me because she had so much to do. She was working 2 jobs. And so she would probably be off running an errand and then come back and pick me up after the audition. But so I had to overcome all of that. But I do remember Leave It to Beaver. I remember watching an episode recently, and I just thought, what a good director, because the kids it was a big long take of the kids, Beaver and this guy I played in another one, walking to Beaver's house, and it was down the back lot of a street at Universal, and he had us playing some silly game where we were walking along the curb and then jumping in the gutter and then up on the sidewalk and then walking here. So he had us engaged in an activity, so we weren't acting. And I looked at him and I looked at that and I just thought, that's really, really good directing.
Hmm.
because, one of the things that we all do as actors is we forget about real life and we act. And by
Right.
God, then they'll catch you acting. And God forbid you ever get caught acting. I mean, that's the whole trick, is
Hmm.
not to get caught doing that. So it was one of the first things that I learned about human behavior. Involve your emotional world in the human behavior that is in the situation, and then you won't get caught acting.
Hmm. By the way, did you get to know Jerry Mathers, obviously, at that time?
I did. He was a very nice kid, and I mean, I was awestruck by him. I mean,
Oh, he was as big as it comes.
he's on a lunch pail. He's got their board game, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh my God, and he's on TV Guide, but he couldn't have been nicer, couldn't have been more normal. It was a real insight into how to behave properly when you're that successful. Excuse me,
Okay.
and Jerry, it did invite me to his house to a party,
A pool party.
pool
That's
party.
right. I just remember that. Yeah.
It was like going to the Playboy Mansion. It was
Wow.
like, oh my God. And here was like Billy Mumy, and here were these other TV actors I knew.
Oh,
And I was
Jesus.
like, oh my God, I've arrived. I've really arrived. And
Wow.
but it was a great time. There was, it was a lot of fun.
Were the other kids, like you mentioned, Bill Mumy at the time, and was he, were they like very accessible, very like, no airs about them, just kids, or
Yeah, yeah, pretty much so. I mean, Billy was, he was a big star. He was in, Lost in Space, and he was doing Disney stuff,
Twilight Zone? Yeah.
and the Twilight Zone. I mean, he was like one of the best young character kid actors around.
Hmm.
And we were all pretty good, but I mean, there were those that were, you know, made you feel or me feel like, wow, I'm nothing compared to this. I mean, and because he actually had a facility as an actor, and that I didn't have at
Hmm.
that point. And I took it upon myself to start studying and to learn my craft so that I could be worthy of the parts that I would get, so that I wouldn't screw them up.
Yeah, yeah, I got you. The other one too, I noticed My Three Sons, because I've had literally everyone that's living on the show. Let's put it that way. And what do you recall about that experience being on My Three Sons?
Well, I remember Gene Reynolds was the director, and Gene Reynolds
Wow.
was one of the MASH directors. I mean, he's one of the main directors of MASH, and one of
Yeah.
the creatives responsible for MASH. And he'd been a kid actor, and I devoured movies on television. I knew all the old MGM movies, Andy Hardy and Mickey Rooney, and Gene told me, he said, I was the kid who could cry. I was the kid at MGM who could cry. I cried in every movie. And it was like, so he told me what it was like when he was my age, when he was acting at MGM in those days.
Wow.
And so and here's Bill Frawley, at least in the first season of that I worked on.
Yeah, sure.
It was Bill Frawley who was um, you know, um,
Fred Mertz.
Fred Mertz. Thank you. He was Fred Mertz on I Love Lucy. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. I
No.
mean, it's like I was in awe of him. I'd see him at the commissary sitting at the counter by himself eating lunch. And it was like,
Ah,
oh my God, it's Fred Mertz. I mean, it's like, so that was sort of my world. And it was very intimidating at times. But I think it's like all of us as actors, it is intimidating. It is your opening night.
mhm.
It is threatening, scary, and what the hell am I doing here now? Who thought this was a good idea? And then you focus and you go out there and you do your work. And you learn your craft can save you in moments like that. And that's really what the training was all about. Unfortunately, I got some good training eventually, although I crashed
Yeah.
and burned a few times, I must say.
Yeah, it's cool though. We talked a bit about Lucille Ball and some great stuff in the book, by the way, for everybody out there. Definitely, that's another one. The other was Henry Fonda. To continue watching my interview with Tim Matheson, just go to the second episode of this interview, available right now on That's Classic. Enjoy.